Hello, this is Cleveland Kate with my girl Michelle, the Sports Jinx, and you are watching the Our Turf Football Podcast College Edition. Michelle, so good to see you. How's your week been so far? Hump day, you getting through?
So far, so good, Kate. Always good to see you. Like you
uh,
said, it's Wednesday. I'm halfway through.
Halfway through. Um, My Buckeyes had a pretty boring game this week against Minnesota, handled that handily. But I was actually looking forward to your game, Miami, the U, taking on Florida State, right? They were both ranked. Florida State's been actually having a really good year. And after y'all took care of the Florida Gators earlier this year, this was the battle for Florida. And I thought it was a very good game. What did you think? The U won despite Lisa being there, our good friend Lisa from the Archer Football NFL podcast is also a huge fan of the U and an alumni of Miami. And she said that whenever she goes to see them play on the road, they always lose. And so she was there this week. We're telling her don't jinx it. Apparently she didn't. But it was a pretty close game. What were your thoughts?
The curse for Lisa is broken. I
Yes.
thought it was a great game because we won. And the score doesn't really reflect the game. It wasn't as close as the score says it was. Miami was up 28-3 before Florida State scored those 19 points in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
But great game for me and for my house full of Hurricane fans versus two Florida State fans that were here. But yeah, I mean, I thought that Miami controlled the game pretty well. I thought that Florida State did a good job of stopping the run and holding Mark Fletcher down. But Carson Beck was, he did his thing with 4 touchdowns. It was 20 or 27 from the field and passing yards. He threw close to 300. Not spectacular numbers there, but he was pretty efficient with the ball, with his passes, and he threw touchdowns, and that's what you need instead of shoot field goals, which would have kept Florida State in the game. So I was very happy with the performance by the Hurricanes. Malachi Tony had a great game. He had over 100 yards receiving. So just a good game. Last week we talked about how Miami ran the ball, and that was the focus of them against Florida. I'm sorry, against Florida. But in this game, Florida State took away the run, and Carson Beck was still able to lead us down the field. So that's what you want to see. Make adjustments and take what the defense gives you.
Yeah, I mean, y'all had some issues with penalties. You had 13 versus Florida State's 5. But I think for me, the biggest thing for me was the momentum changes, was the turnovers. Y'all did not turn the ball over once, and that's huge. And you forced 3 turnovers to Florida State. And that's, I think, in no matter what level of football you're talking about, turnovers is everything. And it has such a huge impact on the game. So when I'm looking at that stat line and I see 0 and 3, that says a lot about Carson Beck. He threw 4 touchdowns, like you said, but no interceptions. Like that's we've seen guys throw 4 touchdowns in a game and then 2 interceptions. Well, it doesn't do you any good if you can't keep the ball safe.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the maturity you get with the Carson Beck, is he's getting better every week at holding on to that football.
He's getting better at holding on to football. His receivers are catching the ball. The backs are holding on, and the defense is creating turnovers.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for success. If you can do those things and you can do those 3 things and do it effectively each week, you're probably going to win the game. And so, Miami is controlling their own destiny. And like you said, so we beat South Florida, we beat Florida, we beat Florida State, we own the state.
And you own the state of Florida now.
Florida champions, as we'll claim that and take that trophy.
Yeah. And it's important there. I know there are a lot of people who don't watch every game in college football, and they're going to look at the lines on Sunday night or, Sunday or Monday, and they're going to be like, oh, 28-22, it was so close. It wasn't ever that close, which is why in the latest polls, Miami is shot up to number 2 in the AP Top 25, number 3 in the coaches poll. Both polls have the same teams, if you will, in like the top 12, the top 15, just a few of them in different order. AP has Ohio State first, Miami second, Oregon third. Coaches poll has it Ohio State, Oregon, Miami. And then they've got, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Indiana, Alabama is up to number 8 in both polls. And then either Georgia or Texas Tech rounding out the top 10. The biggest fall this week belongs to the Penn State Nittany Lions. They completely dropped out of the AP top 25. Somehow they've managed to still hold on in the coaches poll. I'm not sure what the coaches are seeing that the rest of us aren't seeing. They've got Penn State at 22. I understood them just dropping a little bit after the loss to Oregon because Oregon is a very good team. But the loss to UCLA, I think it proved what we have been saying all along, is that Penn State was overrated.
I mean, you're talking about a team that was a preseason, one of the preseason favorites. They were ranked 2 heading into the season in the first week or so, and then they just flat out lost their, their last 2 games. And we understand the Oregon game. Those are 2 ranked teams, pretty good Oregon team. But the loss to UCLA, not expected, and they were losing big. I mean, they gained some momentum in the fourth quarter again to make the score look a lot better than it was. But that game was not. They were UCLA was putting it on them. I mean, like literally, they were killing them. And you're talking about it was 27-7 at halftime. So.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It was 20. It was never that close. The final was 37 to 42, but it was 27-7 at halftime. And then they just got a bunch of garbage. They got 16 garbage points in the fourth quarter, but it was never close.
And I can see that with the Oregon, you look at the AP and, they dropped Oregon. You always lose some ground when you don't play in a particular week. But they probably looking at the Oregon last win was against Penn State. That was a 6-point win.
Yeah.
And then Penn State played so poorly. So sometimes it's not what you do, but what your opponents do that makes people second guess how good you are.
Absolutely. So that was one of the things with Texas losing that first week to Ohio State. We talked about if Texas wants to compete and if they are good, they need to keep winning and they need to hope Ohio State keeps winning. Because if the team you lost to is really good, it makes that loss a little more understandable, which is where, with Penn State losing to Oregon, you're like, all right, that's okay. But now that Penn State lost to UCLA, it makes the voters second guess what they saw with Oregon, because apparently it isn't that difficult to beat Penn State. I'm starting to think James Franco, the head coach for Penn State, starting to think his job might be on the line. They have not done well when it matters. They've not done well. They've not been able to win the big game. They've not been able to beat ranked opponents. I think they absolutely came into this season overrated. I think a lot of teams came into this season ranked based on last year's team.
Yeah.
And now that we've seen 4 or 5 games from these, now the polls are lining up. Now the movement in that top 10 is just one spot up or down because these teams are who they are now. Right.
Yeah. And for the most part, and I think, again, there's a lot of football to be played. And so the idea is that we have more teams in the playoffs and you got to try to move up as best you can. So the good thing about that is you have a little leeway. You can lose some games more so than you could in the previous years, especially if you're one of those Power 5 conferences, because they're always going to look at those games bigger than someone else that's in the lower conference that's undefeated. Yeah. So they have some opportunity to make their way back up, but they got to start playing, and they have to start playing quick, and they have to have some impressive wins. So they can't just win. They're going to have to blow a couple of people out. Like back in the old days when the rankings, when the voters just decided who was the champion. So you blew everybody out so you can make an impression. So
yes,
I think Penn State and Notre Dame are those 2 teams that have to make an impression on voters so that they can climb the polls.
Yeah, for sure. We got some comments from some of the folks in chat. By the way, if you are watching us on the X or Facebook or anywhere else, if you come over to YouTube, you can chat with us here and ask us questions, maybe answer some of ours. We'll see what you got. Kristen's given us a shout out to Lisa. Lisa broke the curse. It is no longer, it's now safe for Lisa to go see the U on the road. She's asking about a rivalry. Is FSU the rival, or is that UF, University of Florida? Or is it all
Florida,
of them because they're all Florida?
Well, it's a rival with all of them, but Florida State more so because for some time when Steve Spurrier was the coach at University of Florida, he took Miami off the schedule. So for some time we didn't play Florida, but we've always played every year is Florida and Florida State. So Florida State more so than Florida, but anytime we play anybody inside the state, you want to beat them, and it's a big rivalry because the fans are split. Yep. The fans are split between the three teams. So,
yep. Big Red. Hello there, Big Red. Jumping in. Losing by a lot to UCLA at home is a red flag for Penn State. And he brings up that point at home. It's very hard to win in Happy Valley. And Penn State lost at home. That makes that an even bigger deal. He's calling his shot. He seems to think he's got the upset alert. South Carolina is going to beat LSU on Saturday. I wish. We'll see if it happens, Red. But I'm going to give a little star to that one so we can see it later. We'll see if it actually happens. Kristen wants to know, did beating Boise State raise Notre Dame's ranking at all? Notre Dame, if I can find it on here, moved
I don't
up
believe
5.
so. I don't think Boise State is a big enough name for them to raise any of their stake. And Boise State is not a ranked team, but they're just not a big enough opponent for Notre Dame to move ahead. Yes, they beat them 28-7, but it's Boise State. It's not like they beat Michigan or they beat somebody in the top 10. That's what they're going to have to do, and I don't think there are anybody on their schedule for them to do that. But all they can do is win, is keep winning, and hope the voters, put them in. That's the only thing they can do from now.
Yeah. So they moved up 5 spots this week, but everybody, like from 7 to 20, moved up because a whole lot of people got dropped out. Penn State got dropped out. Oklahoma dropped 1 spot, as did Oregon. But Vanderbilt dropped 4. Iowa State dropped 8. Florida State dropped 7. Texas and Vanderbilt dropped big. A lot of these, Texas dropped all the way out of the AP top 25. Like, so many schools dropped out that I think Notre Dame's moving up 5 wasn't. So Notre Dame, Michigan, Illinois, BYU, and Virginia all moved up 5 spots. Not because any of them beat some big name, but because 5 schools above them dropped out.
So like Al, in the words of Al Davis, just win, baby. You just win.
And
you win and let the voters do what they do, and the chips fall where they fall. That's all Notre Dame can do, is keep winning.
Because other teams will lose. And they'll keep dropping out. Right now, they're just going to hold their spot. If you lose, you move down, and I think everybody else just stays. Because I don't know until we get to like week 10. Yeah, I don't know that anybody plays a big enough name until we get to start getting to the conference championships.
Yeah, and Texas is another school like Penn State where they're not as good as they were a year or two ago. And I've said all along that Arch is not getting the opportunity to grow. He's not ready yet, but because his name and who he is, who his people are, everybody has him here, but they haven't given him the opportunity to grow as he would for any other quarterback. Didn't really see anything when he played last year that suggested he would be so great, but I think they're kind of rushing him in. But he's probably not ready to lead the team where they need to go just yet.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's suffered developmentally because of his name, and he needed a little more time. We We saw a lot from him in week 1 against Ohio State that needed to be worked on. And I'm still seeing the same mistakes 4 weeks later. So they're just throwing him out there and hoping it'll work. Big Red wants our thoughts on this weekend. So one of the big games this weekend is Georgia Auburn at Auburn. Right now, Georgia's 4-1. Auburn's 3-2, and they are at home. I think this could be a huge game for both those teams. Georgia's ranked 6 or 8, and Auburn's at 20 something. Like they're both ranked. So
yeah. Well, and it's the SEC, and when in the SEC, almost every week it's a big game because they go hard at each other. So those records don't often mean anything. And Auburn is a team that can sneak right in there and beat Georgia. In fact, I probably would pick Auburn to beat Georgia, just because Georgia hasn't really impressed me. For some reason, they're winning, but they haven't quite impressed me. So,
yeah. So Auburn is not ranked in the top 25, but they did get some votes in both polls. So I think a win over Georgia, who's sitting at number 9 or number 10, could very well drop Georgia down significantly and get Auburn up in there. Because you're right, those SEC games are very cutthroat. And this is, again, where that new playoff system is so helpful for all of these teams. What would have been a fringe team coming in at 5 or 6, now you've got 10, 12 teams that have realistically, they just have to keep winning. They just have to keep winning and stay where they're at. One of the teams that we could talk a little bit about that has no chance of getting into the top 25 is really, I think, the letdown of the season for me. We'll talk about the University of North Carolina and their head coach, Bill Belichick. They're 2-3, and it's not even been a close 2-3. It's been an ugly 2-3. Their loss to Georgia Tech was pretty brutal. They lost to Pitt, or they lost to I can read TCU 48-14. They finally got a win against Charlotte, but then they lost, and then they beat Richmond, but they lost to University of Central Florida, UCF, 34-9. And then this past weekend, they lost to Clemson, 38-10. They're on a bye. And Michelle, the big speculation is, will Bill Belichick survive the bye? According to his contract terms, if they want to fire him, they owe him over $20 million. If he quits, he owes them $1 million, and he can walk away as long as he's going to another program that has a chance at the playoffs or a media job. Do you think Bill is still here after the bye?
Yes, absolutely, because he's not going to quit and give them $1 million, and so and nobody else wants him. So where is he going? That's the $20 million that they signed on to give him. And if they have some friends of the program that want to pay that $20 million, that'll be the way to get him out of there. I don't see him quitting, and I don't know if there's another program out there based on his performance now and his last few performances in New England that will want him. I know it's Bill Belichick, but everybody Father Time beats everyone, and everybody has their time. And so he is not looking good. It's not that North Carolina was a top 25, a program that was on, but they were a lot better over the last few years with Coach Brown. And so they're looking really bad right now. They're not even they can't play on any level of FBS football, and they're losing to a small.
Yeah, all three sides of the ball are a hot mess.
Yeah,
and I think that's the complaint. I agree. I thought they were playing better under Coach Brown the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. I mistakenly thought Belichick was that he would get him over that hump and make them respectable, and they have regressed so much from what I can see. I've only seen 2 of their games this year, and it was painful to watch. I only made it till halftime the last one because it was just painful to watch. And I don't know what 73-year-old Darth Hoodie is doing on the sidelines, or what's happening during during practice in the week.
You got to earn the respect. You have to be able to relate to these kids. And, he's 73. So can he relate? Had he left when Tom Brady left, when they were winning championships, it would be different because the players probably would have a little more respect. But those last couple of years when Tom Brady left, and then it became, oh, he's not a good coach after all. And so not that I agree with that, but I'm just saying that's the reputation. And so now he comes over to North Carolina. There's a lot of hype. The fans are hype, and they just lay an egg. They've laid an egg so far, and so they still have time, and you got to give people time in this new day and age with NIL to rebuild the rosters. But for right now, he's not doing himself any favors.
Yeah, Big Red, this is a very common opinion. Tom Brady leaving New England exposed Belichick, and he has never recovered. I will say this. Andy Reid was not one of my favorite head coaches when he was in Philly, and he went into Kansas City, and everyone talks about him like he's the best coach to ever live. And I'm like, he's got Mahomes. I think a quarterback can make it. You can be a great coach, and if you don't have a good quarterback, you got nothing to work with. So I don't know that it's fair to say that without Brady, Belichick is nothing, but I do think Belichick needs a quality quarterback, and he didn't have one in the NFL after he lost Brady. He's struggling with the one he's got in Florida, and I think you're right about the NIL, about the portal, about the players, and they don't have to stay. In the NFL, you're under contract. You couldn't go anywhere. In college, they'll just sit the bench and then they'll wait and go to the portal and they'll leave. Yeah. Those kids cannot relate to a 73-year-old man. I'm pretty sure he doesn't do his own social media. He doesn't know how to do things on his phone. I'm going to go, he's that stereotypical old dude who doesn't do technology. And you can't talk to 18, 19-year-old 20-year-old kids.
He has a 20-some-year-old wife, a girlfriend. So he's relating somewhere. Something. And I'll say this about Andy Reid and defensive Andy Reid. Andy Reid can coach. Andy Reid took a subpar Philadelphia team to the Super Bowl and won the NFC 5 years straight. So he was a very good quarterback.
Donovan McNabb. Who did he have quarterbacking back then?
He had Donovan McNabb. McNabb was good, but they didn't have much else. They had Donovan McNabb and they had Brian Dawkins, and they didn't have a whole lot of other stuff.
You're right. Right.
Until that 1 year they got Terrell Owens, but he didn't have a whole roster full of folks. So
no, you're right. I'll give you that.
But for Bill Belichick, without Brady, and to his defense, they didn't have a whole lot when Brady was there. They had Brady and they had a good system. So and then he lost a lot of his coaches too. Yeah, all of that, and that happens when you win, but. I don't know. It's not working for him right now, and maybe we're jumping to sometimes it don't work out the first year, and maybe you need a couple of years. But for right now, if we were judging, it's not working, Bill. It's not working.
Well, it's not working, and the definition of insanity, as we all know, is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. He's gonna need to change things up. I don't see North Carolina firing him because they are on the hook. They gave him a 3-year deal, and in the deal. If they fire him at any point before the end of the 2027 season, it's guaranteed money. They owe him all of it. And so I don't think, would have done that kind of a deal if they weren't willing to give him time. But at the same time, you've got to see some improvement. You have to see something, some way that what he's doing is working, or else you're just letting it bleed and you're not stopping the bleeding.
Right.
So
and they have and to make it so bad, when they come back, they got Virginia, and that's not Virginia's looking mighty good. So
here's Lisa's latest conspiracy theory. She is counting down the minutes until hipster homebrew Mike McDaniel is fired in Miami, and Lisa thinks Bill knows that Dolphins job's about to open up. That might get him back to the NFL. He's very familiar with that division. And if they get rid of him, I could see him telling North Carolina goodbye and heading to Miami.
Well,
his girlfriend would love Miami.
Yeah, I mean, that's in the contract. If Miami's willing to take him, then I would definitely leave college.
He would have Miami pay that $1 million that he would owe NC.
Oh yeah, that's nothing. That's like $10.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And then Big Red again. Kristen, would the Dolphins want him? You'd have to ask Lisa the answer to that. Does Belichick have a long time to right the ship? He's in his 70s. He's only going to get worse. So Pete Carroll's 74, and he's finding new life he's with the Raiders, right? And they're having a little bit of struggles right now, but I think they're going to figure it out. I think with the right personnel, Bill is a very good coach. He still knows football. Maybe this year is a product of by the time he got hired, they had already signed their recruits. Like he hasn't had time to recruit. I don't know. Michelle, I don't know that I could see Bill Belichick in my living room telling me why my grandson should come to UNC. I don't know that that's his thing. But I don't know how much influence he had into the freshmen on this team. He inherited everybody else.
He had a lot of it until they started playing the games. And so, you know what I'm saying? Like, did you see the stadium in the openings, the first game? I mean, like,
it was
so
excited for him.
They were so excited. And now it's like, oh, today's age, things are old. Last week is so.
What have you done for me lately? I'm going to put Janet Jackson. I'm going to put Janet Jackson 40 years later. What have you done for me lately?
Right. Nothing. So, yeah, I agree,
Yeah.
And Pete Carroll's a young 74 compared, and Bill's an old 70.
Fair. All right, upcoming games. And then Big Red just popped in there. He's right. Belichick is the opposite of Steve Spurrier. One was better in the pros. The other one was better in college. I don't disagree. Yeah. I don't disagree with that one at all.
Absolutely, Big Red.
On the schedule this week, it looks like number 8, Alabama, and number 14, Missouri. We'll have number 1, Ohio State against number 17, Illinois. Typically, I would say a 1 versus 17 shouldn't be a big deal, but it's Big Ten on Big Ten crime going to happen. And the other Big Ten schools always play tight play tough when they get Ohio State. Georgia, Auburn, well, like we said, Auburn's not ranked, but they could be if they can beat Georgia, and they've got them at home. Michigan's going to have a tough trip out to California for USC. Oregon will be hosting number 7, Indiana. I think we're going to find out exactly what Indiana's made of in this game. And y'all are off this week, right? The U is off this week. You don't come back until
much earned rest.
If you play on Friday the 17th, you'll have Louisville. So we'll have all kinds of stuff to talk about until then. Any other games this weekend? Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I said the Florida Texas A&M game might be a pretty good, decent one.
Florida is not ranked. Texas A&M is at 5. But yeah, that's another one where Florida is going to play them hard. And so there are quite a few games this weekend with only one ranked opponent, but they have to win. And they are going to get everything from Florida. I think Ole Miss is going to have their hands full with Washington State. Georgia Tech is going to have their hands full with Virginia Tech. Oklahoma, number 6, should have no problem with Texas, but this would be the week for Texas to make a statement and try to make themselves relevant again and have a good show because they are hosting Oklahoma. So we do have some interesting games. Our Seven Hearts Farm family thinks that Texas A&M is going to beat Florida, and the Alabama versus Missouri game. Yep, that's definitely going to be a good one. So
and let's not forget about South Carolina and LSU, as Big Red mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's his upset of the week pick.
Yeah, woo. South Carolina, you never know which South Carolina team you're going to see, but if you see the right one, they have an opportunity to take care of those Tigers. So,
and lately LSU's been the same way. I don't know which LSU team I'm going to get. So that could be a very interesting game to watch. And I think the next few weeks, what we're going to see with the rankings is what we kind of talked about earlier. As long as you're winning, you're going to be okay. Anybody who loses, it's not going to be a 1 or 2 spot drop. They're just going to drop you down to the bottom and let the people that are winning keep rising their way up to the top. So we've got some some good football coming up over the next few weeks. And I think that's really all I had to talk about this week. You got anything interesting you wanted to talk about, Michelle?
Big Red asked if Material was going to play this week, and I don't know if they've made a decision yet on whether he's going to play or not against Texas. But I'm hoping to see him. I like watching him play, but I don't think they've made it. And they'll probably let us know at the last second if he is going to play. He's questionable though.
I was going to say he's officially listed as questionable right now, which means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
He could very well play, or they could, or not. Like it's a 50-50 ball.
Right.
To me, the questionable rating is like kissing your sister. It means absolutely nothing. Like they have to say something, so that's what they say. Lisa thinks he needs to rest another week. I would love to see him come back. But
it's not worth to come back against Texas. They can beat him without him.
Yeah.
Unless they just want to talk about Mateer versus Arch, which is not really a battle, but whatever.
Well, Lisa, Texas has no business in the top 25. They've dropped out of the top 25 in the AP poll. The coaches are still holding on to him. So all we can figure is that the coaches are seeing something we're not. They think there's life in him. And maybe they looked at the schedule and said, listen, if Texas can find a way to beat Oklahoma, then they can start to dig themselves out of that hole that Arch has put them in the last few weeks. I think it's awesome that we're at the point where people just need to win. You showed us who you are. We know who you are. Penn State is a pretender, gone. Texas, pretender, gone. Get those schools out of my way and let me watch these schools that are going to win now. You want in? You got to beat LSU. You got to beat Oklahoma. You got to beat somebody who's ranked, and that'll move you back up in. Everybody else is just going to stay.
In the words of Herm Edwards, you play to win the game.
I think that's the perfect place to leave our podcast today, y'all. Words to live by. You play to win the game. And Lisa will tell you, if you want to win the game, you need to win the game. Right? All right. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Big Red. Thanks, Seven Hearts Farm and Lisa. Thank you, Krista, and everyone participated in the chat. The NFL podcast will be back right here next Tuesday. Michelle and Sonia will be back with us, and next Wednesday we'll talk some more college football. Until then, y'all have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Peace.